I think we have accomplished our goal. So you'll notice that you may have gotten a banner that says you're now being live streamed, but you may notice at the top left of your screen, it says live on YouTube. The way you access this, if you care, or if you have witnesses, well, not if we do sequestration, but if you go to fultoncourt.org, this is not for y'all because you're on Zoom, but if you go to fultoncourt.org and click on the judges tab, when it has a list of judges, you click on my name and then it gives you the option to start watching the YouTube live stream. That's just for your future use. If your mothers want to see what all that money paid for, you can certainly do it via that way. So I will begin us formally. Good morning. This is, I think, Genki?
I think it's Zin Yang Canopi.
Okay, well, the first, anyway, I'm Genki, the second LLC is our petitioner's name. I got the right case, right?
Zin Yang Canopi LLC.
Oh, I'm so embarrassed, y'all. I picked up the wrong notes. Don't move. I'm actually prepared. Because we had the pretrial on this last week.
Correct.
Okay. No wonder Jessica gave me such a odd look. Okay. Yeah. You say Jin Yang.
Correct, Your Honor. I think I'm just going to call it Canopi.
Okay. This is the Demolition case.
Correct.
Okay. Let me get this. I have these wonderful notes from this other case. All right, sorry. All right, this is Jin Yang Canopi, and we will refer to them, if that works for everybody, as Canopi versus the City of Atlanta. And this is 2021cv344741. We are on for a final hearing, and we are conducting these proceedings via the Zoom teleconference platform. And we are doing that as a gesture of safety and health. But it is important, as I mentioned earlier, that we continue to make all of our proceedings in the court open and accessible to the public. That's an obligation that we take seriously. And so we are live streaming these proceedings via YouTube. Mr. Clark is representing the plaintiff in this case, and Ms. Laverne Long Daniels is representing the City of Atlanta. Mr. Clark, I don't know if you want to make an opening statement, but you're certainly invited to do so at this time.
Okay, Judge, I think this is a pretty straightforward case. I mean, as you noted earlier, this is about the City of Atlanta demolition lien on property that my client owns on 217 Joseph V. Lowry. And if the city did initiate what they refer to as in-rem demolition proceedings, which is a way that if the property is dilapidated and the owner doesn't tear down the property, then the city does have the authority to come in and tear it down. And when they do that, they put a big lien on the property. And so my client did acquire this property and was aware of the demolition proceedings. And frankly, the house needed to be demolished. It was burned out. But my client was concerned that if the city demolished it, how big the lien would be. So before he actually bought the property from the prior owner, which is a company called Sandy Oaks Properties, they went ahead and had the property demolished. Sandy Oaks demolished the property. And they did so, but the city came out, it did so, and this would be roughly in the summer, August of 2019. The city came out a short time afterwards. By that time, the property had already been torn down by the owner. The city came out, and I believe they erected a fence, a wooden fence around the property. We expected after that the lis pendens would have been released so that my client could go forward and purchase the property with clear title. But instead of releasing the lis pendens, which is notice of the demolition proceedings, is what I'm referring to, they filed a lien, not just for the wooden fence that they put up, but for about $30,000, which included 20 some odd $1,000 for demolition that my client did and paid for. So we have Mr. Chris Anderson here who's going to testify as to what happened on the property. And we have, we'll put on our evidence and we're ready to go.
All right, thank you. Ms. Long Daniels, would you like to make an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. I will echo what Mr. Clark said in terms of this being a straightforward case. This is a case involving a demolition lien for the premises located at 217 Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard. Due to the fact that the house was uninhabitable, it had, as he indicated, been burned out. The city started an interim process to move forward with demolishing the building or the home. Part of that process, of course, involves having an asbestos survey done so that if asbestos is in fact found, then the city has to make appropriate or take appropriate steps to make sure that they bring in the appropriate type of company to get rid of the asbestos if it is in fact detected. The city did that. The city retained Southern Demolition. Southern Demolition came out and demolished the home, removed the remains from the property, stabilized the foundation, and also put up a fence. And we expect the evidence that's going to be presented on behalf of the city of Atlanta to demonstrate that. Thank you.
All right, I'll look forward to the evidence. Mr. Clark, would you like to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. I have Chris Anderson here with me, and if it's okay, I'm just going to tilt my screen this way.
All right.
He's my first witness.
Mr. Anderson, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, put your hand down and tell us your name, please, sir.
It's Christopher Anderson.
Just 1 second. All right, Mr. Clark, he's with you.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, you're the manager of petitioner Xinjiang Canopi LLC.
Yes.
And I'm just going to refer to your company as Canopi. And Canopi is the current owner of 217 Joseph E. Lowry in Atlanta.
That's correct.
I'm going to just refer to that as the property. How did Canopi first, or you on behalf of Canopi, first become aware of the property as a potential purchase?
And this summer, I believe it was the summer of 2019, the property was up for tax sale. That's how I first became aware of it.
And did you check the title to the property when you first were looking at it?
I did, and the title was fractured and owned by multiple parties, or multiple parties had claim to the property.
And were you also, so you had a fractured title, you obviously you knew there were delinquent taxes. Did you know about the city's demolition proceedings at that time?
I knew there was a lis pendens filed by the city back in 2017, and that could have been there for quite some period of time and been released, or it could be an open matter. But I did know that back in 2017 there was a lis pendens filed.
Okay, and the property did not end up going to a tax sale, correct?
Correct. It was acquired by Sandy Oaks prior to the tax sale.
And Sandy Oaks is the company that you ended up purchasing the property from ultimately, correct?
Correct.
All right. Do you know about when Sandy Oaks acquired the property?
I believe it was around June of 2019.
Okay, summer of 2019. And so did you make contact with Sandy Oaks to inquire whether they might sell the property to you?
I did.
Did you understand that Sandy Oaks was what some people refer to as a wholesaler of real estate?
Yes, they basically wanted to flip the property without doing any work to it.
That's, yeah, could you just explain if that is the explanation of what a wholesale of real estate is?
A group that basically either acquires property via title or puts a property under contract without doing any significant work on the property to turn around and sell it for a profit.
Okay. And were you willing to purchase at this time, we're talking about 2019, were you willing to purchase the property with the city's Liz Pendens out there, or in your mind, was that a problem?
I was willing to purchase it with the Liz Pendens out there. The property was in a state of disrepair, and I knew that needed to be addressed.
All right. And so you ultimately did acquire the property from Sandy Oaks, correct?
Correct.
And did you have an agreement with how the demolition issue was to be handled with Sandy Oaks?
I would advance the money for demolition on the property.
You would advance the money, and was that to be reimbursed when you ultimately paid them for the property?
Ultimately, that would be reimbursed at closing.
Okay. And so who selected the demolition contractor? Was that you or Sandy Oaks?
Sandy Oaks recommended the demolition contractor.
Okay. And who was the contractor that Sandy Oaks ultimately engaged to demolish the property?
J&B Development, a gentleman by the name of Juan Austin.
And you dealt with J&B directly?
Did you, I'm sorry, did you say J&B or JNB?
It's the initials or the letters JNB.
Oh, N is in Nancy, B.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And so you had direct communications with JNB, correct?
Correct.
And who was your point of contact there?
Mr. Juan Austin.
All right.
Ron Austin?
Juan, like Juan.
Got it, sorry.
Okay, and did you have a scope of work that that J&B agreed to perform on the property?
They agreed to demolish the property, remove the debris, properly grade the property, and then seed and straw the property.
How much do they charge for that work?
$13,000.
All right, I'm going to share my screen here because I'm going to show the witness some documents. Let's see. Share. All right. And Your Honor, can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay. All right, Mr. Anderson, I'm showing you what I have as P1. Do you recognize this?
It's an invoice from J&B Development for the demolition of the property at 217 Joseph Lowry.
So this is the invoice that J&B gave to you for the scope of their work.
Correct.
Okay. And did you, in fact, pay J&B the $13,000?
I did.
I'll show you this document that I have as P2. Is this the check that you paid for the work to J&B?
That is the check.
Now, I'll just point out, this is a check written on an account from RISO. Is that an entity that you're affiliated with?
I'm a manager of that company.
All right, so let me go back to P1. The invoice stated August 30th, 2019. Is that the time period when you expected J&B to do the work or begin the work out there?
That was when they were scheduled to begin the work.
Okay. Did you monitor the J&B's work as it was ongoing?
I did. Went out to the property to inspect and see if they'd done the work.
Okay, and were you in communication with Mr. Juan Austin during this time?
I was.
Did you have text messages with him?
I did.
me show you P3. Is this the text message thread you have with Mr. Austin at the time?
That's correct.
And your words are in green and his are in gray.
That's correct.
Can you just generally tell me about what you understood this text thread to mean as far as what they were doing?
I sent him a text on August 30th to make sure everything was good, that they were beginning their demolition work. And he responded to my text on August 31st that he was finished, that he was done with the demolition.
Okay. And when you wrote to him and said all good, what were you asking there?
That they had started work at the property, that everything was good to begin work.
All right. When you got the word or the text done, did you go out and check on the work?
I did on September 2nd, September 3rd.
All right. And did you take any photos while you were there?
I did.
All right. Let's look at, let me show you P4. Now this is, obviously there's a house there. This is before the demolition, correct?
Correct.
This is a picture you took?
That's a picture I took when I first became aware of the property.
So this date, June 13, 2019, what's the significance of that?
I think that was right around when it was up for tax sale.
Okay. All right. Let me show you P5. You identify this.
That was a picture that I took on September 2nd. The house was gone. I went to check on the site. I also communicated with Juan Austin whether they were going to seed and straw the property. So that was an interim inspection.
It's before they were finished, but they had demolished the structure at that point.
Correct.
All right, let me show you P6. It's a picture of the same setting, but now there's a newspaper and there's some information at the bottom. Can you tell us what this is?
So that's a picture I took on September 2nd with the
Of what year?
Of-
2019.
sorry, September 2nd, 2019, of the site with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in the foreground and the phone metadata down below, September 2nd at 12:18 p.m. Just as evidence to Sandy Oak that the house was demolished, and just to make sure there was evidence that the house was demolished so that we wouldn't have the situation we're in today, making sure that everyone knew that the house was gone as of that date.
All right. I'll show you the next is P7. That's the same newspaper. Is this just a different view of the same property?
That is a view from Thurman Street, which is the side street that runs perpendicular to Joseph Lowry.
Okay, and just so everybody's clear, this green house, that's not your house, right?
Correct.
You have the property next to it?
Correct. Through the clearing is where 217 Joseph Lowry is.
Okay, and this is P8. Is this another picture you took?
That is on that same date with the evidence that the property was gone.
All right, and this must be you're standing at the street looking down towards the back rear of the property?
That is from Joseph Lowry Boulevard.
All right, and then again, that was taken on the same September 2nd date?
Correct.
All right, P9. Okay, here we go. This is just the same picture with your phone's metadata attached?
Correct. On September 2nd at 12:17 p.m.
Okay.
2019.
All right. Let's see. All right. This is a little bit different picture. Can you explain what that is?
Those were pictures that were sent to me on September 3rd, 2019 by Juan Austin after he went back out and seeded and put wheat straw on the property.
Okay. Let me show you P11. We'll just identify this picture, please.
So that's the metadata from the picture that shows it's a text that was shared from a Mr. Juan Austin on September 3rd. The picture was taken on September 3rd at 4:04 p.m. 2019.
And this again was just for Mr. Alston to confirm to you that the work you'd engaged, or I guess Sandy Oaks had engaged you to do that you were paying for, had been completed.
Correct.
All right. And okay, so what I'm showing you P12. Can you let me just ask you a few questions before we talk about this picture. So at some point, did you become aware that the city had sent their contractors to the property?
I did. I drove by to check on the property on September 12th, and I saw that there was a truck parked on Thurman Street with the Southern Demo logo on the back of the truck, and I took this picture on September 12th, 2019 at 11:14 a.m.
Was there any demolition work to be done at that point, or had J and B already demolished the property?
The property had already been demolished, which is why I took the picture, because I didn't know why they were out there, and I just wanted to make sure that I had evidence.
That they came out after the property was demolished?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Let's see. And so the picture that we're looking at, T12, that's the picture you took to establish when Southern Demo was out there.
Correct.
This is just the same picture without P13, the same picture without the metadata.
Yes.
All right. All right. Let's see. Now, this is the lien. Well, is this the lien that you contend is for work that the city did not perform?
That's correct. This is a lien of approximately $31,000 from the city of Atlanta against the property for. I'm not sure what this was for, but I know that I paid to have the property demolished.
All right. Well, this is all one recorded document that I'm scrolling through. So this is, even though there's
What's the date on it, Mr. Clark?
date at the bottom, it was recorded. It's January 16, 2020.
Okay, thank you.
For the lien, it says for a lien that came due on January 16th, 2020. And then, all right, Mr. Anderson, I'm just going to scroll all the way to the end of this document as it's recorded by the city. And we find an invoice here. Now, it's $2,400 and a permit fee for a wood fence. Now, you don't contend that you had put a wood fence or anybody that you engaged put a wood fence on the property, right?
Correct.
But you do dispute this demolition fee of $26,745.80
Yes.
because you already paid someone else to demolish it.
Correct.
Okay, so at some point after this lien was filed, you bought the property, right?
Correct.
And you knew that you would have to take this issue to deal with this lien issue. You knew you'd have to file a quiet title or suspected so, and that's how we find ourselves here.
Yes.
All right. Your Honor, that is all I have for this witness.
Can I just, before we turn the witness over, can I just clarify that plaintiff bought the property after January 16th, 2020?
Yes, that's what he just was basically testifying. He knew to the lien and then bought it. So,
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Long Daniels, any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor, I have a few questions. Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
did you make application for a permit for the demolition of the structure at 217 Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard?
I left that up to my contractor. I'm not a contractor, but
No, my question is, did you make application for and or receive a permit
me personally,
yourself?
no.
Okay. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, I've just got a couple of questions, Mr. Anderson. there was something back in the testimony, or maybe it was just the opening statement about 2017. Was there a lien or a lis pendens in 2017 that you knew of?
It's my understanding that the city filed a lis pendens in 2017, identifying the property as having violations that needed to be addressed.
Okay. All right. And when you said that you said something about fractured title, again, some of this may be from the opening statement, and you may or may not be the person to testify to it, but when you talk about fractured title, your predecessor was Sandy something. Sandy Plains, Sandy Oaks. Okay, your predecessor was Sandy Oaks. I'm going to ask a ridiculous question. Did you get any title insurance when you bought it?
That's no, ma'am. No,
Okay.
no, Your Honor. Sorry.
Okay, that's, you call ma'am does great. Okay, now did you do any kind of research or title examination behind Sandy Oaks?
I did title research to show that there was a group out of Florida that had a claim to the title, a Rush Capital Group, and there was also an open loan that was of record, and there was also a group out of, I believe, Canada, El Bay, that also had an ownership in LBEY, I believe is the spelling.
Okay.
And these four groups had competing interests in the property, and that's why I used the term fractured.
Okay. And was it your intention after that to, and this may or may not be relevant, I get that, but and anybody can object, but was it your intention ultimately to file a quiet title action?
I knew that this title was would require a lot of attention and would likely involve engaging an attorney to help piece the title back together, and that would likely be through some form of quiet title action.
Okay. Okay, and then so just let me ask this, and again, this may not at all be relevant, but what did Canopi pay for the property?
So paid the advance on the demolition, which was roughly 13. There was a gentleman, I believe, in Rush Capital Group that was paid, I believe, $4,000 or $5,000. So all in, approximately $20,000.
And that's what Canopi paid for the property?
Correct, plus then attorney's fees on top of that.
Okay. Okay. I think that's all I have. Does anybody have any further questions for this witness?
No, Your Honor. Oh, I don't, Your Honor.
Okay. You want to call your next witness?
Well, Your Honor, that's our case.
Nope. Do you want to hold on? Do you want to admit your exhibits?
Oh, yes, I'd like to tender P1 through P14.
Any objection, Ms. Long Daniels?
Yes, Your Honor, I'm going to object to the admission of the pictures. I think they're exhibits P6 through P9. Anyone could have gotten a newspaper, an older newspaper, and taken a picture at the property. So I don't think that they demonstrate conclusively that on those dates, that was the condition of the properties.
Okay. Exhibits, do you have any exhibits to 1 through 5?
I do not.
All right. Plaintiff's exhibits 1 through 5 are admitted into evidence without objection. Plaintiff's exhibit 6 through 9 are admitted over objection. And then how about 10 through 14? Any objection to those, Ms. Long Daniels?
No, Your Honor.
And then 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 are admitted without objection. Okay, anything further, Mr. Clark?
No, Your Honor, that is our case.
All right, so then we can say plaintiff rests.
Plaintiff rests.
Okay, Ms. Long Daniels, and do you mind taking us off screen share?
Oh, sorry. Stop. Yes.
All
sorry.
right. Ms. Long Daniels, would you like to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The city calls Officer Jocelyn Lyles.
All right, officer, good to see you. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right, I think you're on mute. Can you take it off mute and let me know if you affirm the oath?
I do.
Okay, thanks. And if you'll put your hand down and give us your name, please.
My name is Jocelyn Lyles.
All right, Ms. Long Daniels, she's with you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Lyles, can you tell us where you're employed?
I am employed with APD Code Enforcement of the City of Atlanta.
And what is your position with the city of Atlanta?
Presently, I am Code Enforcement Manager and have been so since June of last year. Have been employed as Senior Housing Demolition Officer since 2008.
So that would have been from 2008 up until sometime last year.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us what some of your duties are as a manager in code enforcement?
As a manager in code enforcement, I oversee a staff of administrative and inspectors that inspect properties for the purposes of compiling evidence to present to during an administrative hearing, an administrative public hearing regarding properties that have been abandoned and substantially deteriorated for the purposes of abating these issues.
All right, thank you. Now I'm going to share my screen and pull up exhibits that I would like to go through with you. Okay, are you all able to see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell me what this first exhibit is? Exhibit number 1, which is on the screen.
The first exhibit is the notice to the public and also used to advise all parties in interest after a complete title search, a legal title search of the title and ownership interest in the property. That notice is placed on the structure and it is sent to all the owner of record and parties in interest.
Okay, are you familiar with the in-rim process as it relates specifically to 217 Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard Southwest?
I am, as actually I did the inspection of that property back in 2017. And I'm sorry,
I'm sorry, when you conducted that inspection, what was the condition of the property?
the structure was burned and overgrown. The lot was overgrown. You could not enter the structure because of the likelihood of it collapsing due to the fire damage.
Thank you. I am now scrolling down to what is marked as the city's exhibit number 2. Can you tell me what that is?
That letter is the notice to all parties in interest and the public of the results of the hearing.
And what were the results?
The property was, we had agreement by the board that the structure should be demolished.
And what is the date on that notice?
That would be November 16th, 2017.
All right, thank you. I am scrolling down to what is now labeled as the city's exhibit number 3. Can you tell the court what that document is?
That is a report that is prepared prior to the hearing that serves as evidence of inspection and also gives the summary conclusion of our recommendation either clean and close or demolition.
All right. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of this and ask. I'll get to the final page. What is the conclusion that's indicated on the final page of that assessment?
The conclusion was 376% deterioration, resulting in a demolition order
All
or
right,
recommendation.
thank you. Okay, I have on the screen now what is labeled as the city's exhibit number 4. Officer Lyles, can you tell us what that is?
That document is what's called a notice to proceed, and this particular one engages an asbestos survey contractor as required by law to assess and evaluate the structure for asbestos containing material. That is, it sums it up. Pretty much what they do as a result is they do testing where possible, provide the samples that they get from the structure, turn them over to a laboratory for testing and consideration of levels of asbestos containing materials.
Okay, and what company is designated as the company to conduct the asbestos survey?
That would be Aldridge Services.
Thank you. Okay, I am scrolling down to,
Ms. Long Daniels, was that notice to proceed part of Exhibit 3, or is that a separate exhibit?
it's a separate exhibit.
So
It's
that was
exhibit-
number 4, correct?
That's correct. That's
Ah,
exhibit
thank
number 4. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Officer Lyles, I have what's labeled exhibit number 5. Can you tell us what that is?
That is the result of the asbestos survey conducted at that property. What it includes are the details about the property, the condition of the property, the samples that were extracted from that, that structure, and the results of testing done in the laboratory exclusive of the asbestos survey contractor. They are to have those samples reviewed by the lab, and then they are returned to the contractor and result in this report.
Was there any detection of asbestos in the samples that were taken?
Yes,
Okay. Can you tell us, and I'm going to come down to, can you tell us where the asbestos was found?
the asbestos was found in the roof shingles. There were portions of those that were sampled. The other portions of the structure were sampled as well, but the conclusion embraced the roof as a source of the asbestos containing material.
Okay. I have up on the screen now, right now, from that exhibit table 1A. Can you explain to us what that is?
This table represents the areas that where samples were extracted.
All right, thank you. I now have up on the screen the results of the lab results from the bulk sample testing that was done. Can you tell us what the findings were?
The findings are actually a little bit further down from this
Okay.
particular chart that there is.
Okay.
That serves to give the results of the lab work and also the location of the sample that revealed the asbestos containing materials.
Okay, I'm still on that same exhibit. The page that I have up currently on the screen, can you tell me where it shows the detection of asbestos?
A little bit further down in the report, there's specific details of the where the asbestos containing materials are and a statement about the quantities. First there, they show where the samples were taken. And then a little bit farther down in the report, you will note the photograph support. And there's, okay, there it is. Right there, that chart shows the location where the sample was extracted, the type of sample that was extracted, the evidence of asbestos containing materials, or ACM, and the type of asbestos containing materials, crystallite. The approximate square footage of the amount of asbestos containing materials is indicated. And in this particular one, it shows unknown, mainly because the roof had collapsed. The percentage of the roof had collapsed.
All right, thank you. And I now have up on the screen what's labeled as the city's exhibit number 6. Can you tell the court what that is, please?
That is the invoice for services for the asbestos survey.
Okay, and is that the amount that was paid to Aldrich Service, Inc. for the asbestos survey?
That's correct, yes.
Ah, thank you. Okay, I now have up on the screen what's labeled as the city's exhibit number 7. Are you familiar with that document?
I am.
Okay, can you explain to the court what that is, please?
This document is a requirement for the demolition of any property where your asbestos survey information and proof of the abatement plans and process. Who did the asbestos survey? Who would be doing the abatement of the asbestos prior to the demolition? And this form is required for each demolition done in the city of Atlanta.
Okay, thank you. I'm showing you now what is labeled as the city's exhibit number 8. Can you explain to the court what this document is?
Here again is what's called a notice to proceed. The Southern Demolition and Environmental, who worked with us for several years, has been assigned to do the demolition and has a formal contract with the city to execute that demolition in full from beginning to end.
Okay, so this notice to proceed is to permission or direction, instruction to Southern Demolition and Environmental to proceed with the demolition, correct?
That's correct. It also stipulates the amount of the demolition on the front end based on a cost per unit accepted by the procurement division of our city.
All right, thank you.
Wait, can you go back to the date? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm going back up, Your Honor.
Well,
At the top,
I don't think it's at the top. I think
Oh,
it's
okay.
that signature page.
okay. There we are, sorry.
Okay.
Officer Lyles, I now have up what's labeled as the city's exhibit number 9. Can you explain to the court what this particular document is?
This document is called a demolition price worksheet, which allows the contractor to summarize all of the requirements for the demolition. It involves the size of the structure, the construction type of the structure, and the other associated jobs that would be required, including seed and straw, excess junk, trash, and debris, fill dirt that's necessary to fill that site because and the other characteristics of the land and lot as to what is going to be required to restore that site to safety and completion.
And what was the total amount that's reflected on that form?
The total amount is $35,385.80.
Okay, and that document is dated, what's the date on this document?
August 26th, 2019.
And whose signature is at the bottom?
The signature is that of one of the principals of Southern Demolition and Environmental. Mr. Matt Ragsdale.
All right, thank you. Now I'm showing you what's labeled as exhibit number 10. Can you explain what that document is?
This is another version of the same document, the demolition price worksheet. There's estimates given of the cost for demolition based on the size of the structure and all of these specific details regarding removal of debris, removal of overgrowth, additional dirt, etc., necessary to complete that demolition and restore that site to safety.
Okay, so what's the revised amount, which is the amount that Mr. Ragsdale, Southern Demolition, ended up being paid for the demolition, as reflected at the bottom of this exhibit?
That would be $26,745.80.
Thank you. I am now showing you what is labeled as the city's exhibit number 11. Can you explain to the court what this is?
This is the final invoice that would be provided for us for payment. It involves the cost for the demolition, the cost for the permits, and the any additional work that was done there at the site. In this situation, your permit fees, a wet demolition was completed, and a installation of wooden fencing and the fencing permit.
All right. Can you explain to the court, Officer Lyles, what a wet demolition is?
A wet demolition is a demolition where the asbestos containing materials considered. The structure is prepared for demolition to avoid the spread of or friability of asbestos containing materials that are identified in the structure prior to the demolition. That wet demolition, the structure is actually wet down. There are other specific details that have to be completed including the containment of the debris of that demolition, special preparation of the containers that will hold and transport that material to a specialized dump site. Then,
All right.
let's see, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You may continue, Officer Lyles.
Yeah, so the wet demolition is completed to avoid friability of asbestos containing materials. I think everybody knows about that mesothelioma. Well, that is one of the diseases that are affected by the asbestos containing materials floating through the air in various sites. In this particular situation, a demolition is completed because we are unable to remove the asbestos containing material safely. And so the wet demolition is the alternative to abatement of the asbestos.
The company that was used for the demolition and for the removal, Southern Demolition Environmental, is that a company that specializes or that has special training in this area of removing particles or substances containing asbestos?
They are.
All right. Thank you. Can you explain to the court what I have up on the screen right now that's labeled the city's exhibit number 12?
This document, again, is a review of the site, a review of the parties involved in the abatement of asbestos. This is an EPD form that is required for all demolitions.
Is that a form that's federally required to be completed?
Yes.
Thank you. I am now
Do we have
showing,
a date on exhibit 12?
I am going back up here. No, there is no date on that document, Your Honor.
Well, there was a date, but it wasn't the date this was filled out. There was a date of
Right.
11/9/18. And I
Right, which
think
I
that
think
was
is
the
license or
end date, the abatement end date, 11. Okay. But we don't know when this form was generated or filled out.
Officer Lyles, are you able to testify or to indicate, to tell us when this form was completed? I see
Okay,
we
this
have here-
is an estimate of time. The abatement start date at this particular time was October 9th, 2018. And the projected end date for the abatement was November 8th, 2018.
So this form would have been completed sometime, if you were to estimate, in September, early October of 2018?
It's my thought that around the time right before the issuance of the permit, because it is a requirement of the completion or the issuance of the permit.
All right, thank you. I'm now showing you an exhibit on the screen, which is labeled as the city's exhibit number 13. Officer Lyles, can you explain to us what that document is?
This document is an actual building permit from our buildings department to allow and provide for the installation of a fence at the site.
Okay, and who made application for and received the permit?
That would have been Southern Demolition principal or one of their employees.
Okay, what's the date of issuance of the permit?
September 11th, 2019.
Now I'm showing on the screen what is labeled as the city's exhibit number 14. Can you tell the court what this document is?
That is the actual demo permit that is required in the city of Atlanta, dated August 26, 2019.
Okay, and who was the applicant and who received the permit?
Southern Demolition received and applied for the permit. They had employees to do that work under their name.
Okay, and what was the date of issuance of the building permit?
August
Southern Demolition.
26, 2019.
Thank you. I now have on the screen what's labeled as the city's exhibit number 15. Officer Lyles, can you explain to the court what this document is?
That is the final invoice acknowledging the completion of the work and the total expenses associated with the job.
Okay, and what's the total amount?
$30,400.80.
And what's the date of that invoice?
That would be October 7th, 2019.
Thank you. I am now showing you what's labeled as the city's exhibit number 16. Can you tell the court what that picture reflects?
That reflects the post-installation of the fencing that was authorized there. You've got I guess you could call it privacy fence installed.
Oh,
And then,
okay.
of course, a picket fence in the front that is legal.
All right, thank you. And I'm now showing you exhibit number 17. Can you tell the court what that picture depicts? It's dark.
That would be the final job showing the seed and straw that would be installed and required by the demolition contract.
All right, thank you. Those are all of my exhibits. I'm going to stop sharing now. Officer Lyles, are you familiar with a company by the name of JNB Development as it relates to having made any application for a permit for the demolition of the structure at 217 Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard?
No, I am not. I did some investigation and looked. There was no such demolition application made by this company. or any other company.
Okay, are you familiar with a Juan Austin as it relates to him having anything to do with the demolition of the structure at 217 Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard?
No.
All right, thank you. I have no more questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, any cross-examination, Mr. Clark?
A few questions, Your Honor. Officer Lyles, can you tell me when the city contends that Southern Demolition went out and did the demolition here?
Well, we got the permit on August 26th. The demolition would have taken place shortly thereafter.
Okay,
No.
what's the date they were out there?
I don't know.
Okay. Were you physically on the property when Southern Demo allegedly tore down the property?
No, I was not.
Were you out on the property between the dates at any point of August 30th, 2019, September 3rd, 2019?
To be honest, I don't remember.
Okay. Let me show you. I'm going to share my screen with you, everyone. Let's see if I can get this centered up. This was a set of documents produced to my office in response to some discovery requests. It's basic. Do you recognize this set of documents? I can scroll through it. It's most
I
of it.
do.
Okay. Did you have a hand in putting this together?
I did. I completed some of the documents contained therein, but the document itself, I did not.
Okay. Let me point you to one specific document real quick. If I can get that here. 1 second.
Can I just ask, Mr. Clark, is this a new exhibit or are you using one of the cities?
This is not, this would be a new exhibit because
Okay.
it's the way it was produced to me all as one big document, but I just want to show you.
Okay, because I have it listed now as 15 for the plaintiffs.
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct. All right. Officer Lyles, you see this email, it's dated August 30th, 2018. That's you, I believe, in the CC line, Jocelyn Lyles. Is that right? You recognize this email?
I recognize my name on it. I had Tanya Halton Mincy was my supervisor at the time.
Okay. And did Corporate Environmental Risk Management provide any services for 217 Joseph E. Lowry to the city?
Not to my knowledge. Oh, CERM. CERM gave an estimate of what it would cost for the abatement.
Okay, and I'm looking here, this email that you're copied on, 217 Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard is burned out to the extent that it is not safe to conduct asbestos abatement.
That's correct.
So no asbestos abatement was done on this property?
When the condition of the property is such that an abatement cannot be conducted, a wet demolition is required.
Okay, let's look. Let me just make a note here. I'm sorry. It's exhibit 15. All right, so I'm going to scroll through. I have copies of the same documents that you just went over, and I'm going to try to refer to them by the exhibits. Let me go here quickly. The exhibits that your attorney has labeled them. I believe this document would be the notice to proceed, which is, I think, number 8. Defense Exhibit 8. I'm just going to scroll through here. Here's the bid worksheet, which I believe is 9. And on here, we have a line item for wet demolition fees. I'll scroll up so make sure if I can see this. $3,800. Is that right?
Yes.
So the city had budgeted $3,800 when it engaged Southern Demolition for the wet demolition portion, correct?
Appears that way, yes.
All right, and then the next, I'm going to scroll down here. This is the updated which I have as defense exhibit number 10. It's got a strike through here of solid masonry. Looks like that was taken off the bid. That's not really my question. But now we have a line item struck through wet demolition fees of $3,800. So you have 38 there, and then above it, 4,840 was struck for the solid masonry demo. And it appears those numbers were subtracted off the original bid price. So it looks like, am I correct, that there was no charge budgeted for wet demolition fees on this property?
It appears that there are two of those documents, and so therefore there may have been some discussion of a change in the cost. But a wet demolition, in fact, was conducted. If you compare the first price worksheet and the second price worksheet, the second piece that was stricken from that form was for the lower level, basement level of that structure.
Right. So we took out the lower level, which is $4,840. Then we took out the wet demolition fee, $3,800. Subtracted that amount from $35,000. Now we're down to $26,745. Right?
Appears that way, yes, sir.
All right. And then, of course, right here in front of us, there is 0 line items for any asbestos removal, asbestos shingles. Here's the line item, $0. Asbestos removal, 0. There's no charge for any of that. So there's no asbestos remediation done on this project, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'd like to bring to your attention, however, that
I'm sorry, I don't have a pending question.
okay.
And so did you get this invoice here? That would be Defense 11. Did you see this when it was sent to the city?
Yes. Well, not when it was sent to the city. I've seen the form now.
Okay. And you see a line item for wet demolition, $26,745.80. Right?
Yes.
But your budget had $0 for wet demolition. Right?
It appears that way, yes.
Did this strike you as strange that you budgeted $0 and then were billed $26,745.80 for a wet demolition?
Actually, no.
Okay. And then this would be, I'm going to show you a different document. I believe I have this down as, I'm not sure what defense exhibit it's labeled. Ms. Long Daniels, do you know what you labeled this one?
You're on mute, Mr. Daniels.
It's exhibit number 7.
Thank you. 7. Okay. Asbestos survey information. And I believe we talked about it. So this was dated, yes, 2018. It expired. Just want to scroll through abatement start date, October 9th, 2018. Scroll down here. This wasn't filled in by anybody, correct? I mean, you'd expect to see name, signature, owner, or the contractor, or other, phone number, date, that sort of thing. Now that didn't happen here, right?
The applicable dates were for the purpose of the permit, issuance of the permit.
But this exhibit that you have as number 7 was never filled out by anybody. It wasn't signed by anybody. It wasn't submitted for anything, right?
It was submitted to provide information to our permits department of who the participants would be.
All right, well, I don't see anybody's name on here. Did you expect to be, this document, is it typically signed, printed, checkbox, whether they're the owner or the contractor?
No, actually not, because the information that was necessary for that form at that particular stage was provided for the building's permit department.
And do you work for the building permit department?
No, sir, I do not.
So when you say you search the city's records to see who pulled the permits, that's not your department's records. Those aren't records you would issue, in other words.
This document, or are you talking
Building
about another?
permits, building permits.
Building permits is issued by the buildings department.
And that's not you, right?
That's correct.
1 second. We did go over the wooden fence. Is that required by code to build a wooden fence after you demolish a residential property?
No, it's not required, at least not to my knowledge. What I have to add, though, is that because of the topography, what we attempt to do is to prevent erosion and runoff onto others' properties. As a matter of course, most demolitions don't have that particular lay of the land, so to say. And so each demolition is different from each other one.
And as a code officer, you're charged with enforcing the housing code of the city of Atlanta?
As far as my job is concerned, mine has been specifically for the in-rem process and evaluating abandoned, dilapidated properties.
Are you familiar with the Atlanta Housing Code, or are you not familiar with it?
I am familiar with it, but my specialization is the in-rem process.
Once a building is, a residential building is demolished, if you want to control erosion, isn't typically a silt fence installed?
It is a silt fence. Those are installed first.
I don't see any silt fence installed on this property though, right?
I think that's because of the time frame when the fence was installed, when the wood fence was installed.
If you bear with me 1 second, hang on. I think that's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay. Officer Lyles, I'm Jane Barwick, and I just have a few questions, and then I'll let the lawyers follow up on my questions. Going through my notes of your testimony, it looks like you first came across this property, or it came onto your particular radar in 2017, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and you issued or sort of began the formal paperwork, specifically exhibits 1, 2, 3, in 2017.
That's correct.
Okay, now what happened between 2017 and 2019?
We have a process. Once we find the property is acceptable for demolition, there are various screening processes that have to take place before we're actually able to demolish the property. Those have to do with the notion that our funding is federal, local, or state funding, and there are requirements for review of all of our demolition orders prior to our acceptance of the ability to do the demo.
Because in the meantime, the neighbors are going nuts, right?
That's true.
Okay, and so do you have memory of, and I don't need proof of, but I'm just curious whether in the meantime you were filing code violations against whoever the record owners were?
Actually, no. Once the compliance resolution or in-rem division of code enforcement gets the file and we process the file, code enforcement is no longer actively involved. We get all of our cases from code enforcement, which has attempted all of those processes, including citation notices and so on. And at that point, it becomes ours for final abatement.
Okay, did you have any communication with the owners?
No.
let's say the owners were local, or you knew who the owners were, and they just had been unresponsive to the code violation process. Would you ever have have communication with the owners?
Most times, no, I wouldn't, Your Honor.
Okay, and so there would never be a time, or not a time that you know of, where, you know, maybe it's an absentee owner, maybe it's just an old person, maybe it's a family feud. Is there ever a time where the owners get involved at your level and say, we're sorry, we get it, we'll tear it down?
That is rare, and at that particular point, I have no memory of that ever happening.
I understand. Okay, so is your, and you may not be able to answer this, and that's completely fair if you can answer it, but is your participation in the cycle generally in preparation for the city coming in to foreclose for the affordable housing program?
That has no part in it, and especially at that time, because the acquiring of or project for affordable housing had not yet been brought to the fore. Now, of course, it may, but at that particular time in 2017, the affordable housing notions were relegated to the Atlanta Housing Authority, and we had nothing to do with that at that time.
Okay, and that's because in this time period, or maybe it's because, or it could be a factor, that we didn't have the foreclosure blight problem that we had in 2008, 2009, 2010. Right? These properties
At that
were still
time,
reasonably sellable.
At that time, for real estate in the city of Atlanta, there was the end of the mortgage fraud and appraisal fraud and so on, and the onslaught of investors coming to the area in preparation for other developments in the city of Atlanta.
Okay, now you mentioned with Ms. Long Daniels, you talked about federal requirements. There are actually two environmental agencies involved in this, right? Federal and state?
Yes.
Okay. And
EPD and EPA.
Okay, and EPD, the forms that your lawyer showed you, or the forms that the city's lawyer showed you, is EPD. Those are state forms, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. All right, now.
But I believe too, is a matter of clarification.
Okay, now the Southern, is Southern, tell me about the status. Is it approved? Is it licensed? What's the characterization of their ability to do this work?
This company, first and foremost, has been licensed as Asbestos survey contractors and subsequently demolition contractors. They have a relationship with the city of Atlanta that requires all of their certifications, licensure, et cetera, be demonstrated in a formal and demonstrated and approved in a formal contract.
And licensed by whom? The federal or state?
Licensed by the state.
Okay. So
I believe they're
EPD.
state licensed.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have any other contractors that you use?
Over the past 14 years of working in this capacity or a similar capacity as housing demolition officer, we have worked with several.
5 cases.
Whoops. Let's go over and get that one. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, over the course of 14 years, what were you going to say?
Over the course of 14 years working as housing demolition officer, I have worked with several
Okay.
contractors. All of them are required to be licensed in the state.
All right. Is there a bid process, or is it next one up? How do you pick who the city's actually going to use on any particular property?
The city has what is called the request for proposal. When they meet with a group of people interested in doing business with the city of Atlanta, and they have an application process and a review process rather in depth, going through the procurement office of the city of Atlanta, which is aside from the users. Users are different and they don't make the decisions, rather they provide their needs, and the specific details for the city procurement, the licensure, the insurance, etc., is required and made and reviewed by the procurement division.
Okay, now what I'm going to ask you, Officer Lyles, is I think what kind of we all want to know. What did Southern do? What did they tear down?
They tore down 217 Joseph E. Lowry, amongst other properties. They have worked with the city now for well into 15 years, I would say, doing everything from asbestos abatement and surveys all the way to demolition. They are a trusted employee. They're an entrusted contractor, that is.
I'm not, I'm not dispute. This isn't what you heard. What the man testified to, showing the newspaper in front of the property, right? You were on the Zoom call.
That's correct.
Is there any doubt in your mind that Southern had a bulldozer and all the asbestos equipment and all of the things that they bring to the hazmat suits and the specialized bags? Is there any doubt in your mind that they did what they told you they did and billed you for?
No, ma'am, there is no doubt.
Well, then how do you reconcile the pictures?
Well, any number of things can happen. It's my, at any time during that time, I was not the only housing demolition officer. I am very familiar with the Southern Demolition's work, and the photographs, I'd have to agree from previous things that I have heard, you can make up anything to suit. The issue becomes if the demolition was conducted legally, there was a permit that was provided with all of the necessary documentation and in conformity with the requirements by our buildings division. That time frame is the time for processing a permit. Sometimes takes longer than others, but I am very, very satisfied with the fact that Southern Demolition did complete the work.
Okay.
All of it.
Okay, now let's take a different scenario. So let's take Southern out of the equation. Let's say that you had targeted this property and the neighbors certainly were complaining. It was an eyesore, it was blighted. Let's say everything you did up until the demolition textbook. And somebody else came in, the owner came in and tore the house down. They didn't, let's assume for the sake of this question, they didn't get the proper permit. They didn't do the asbestos survey. They didn't do asbestos abatement. What does the city do then? They're in trouble maybe with the EPD, right?
If the city had identified them doing a demolition without permit, they would be in trouble. But the limit, to the best of my knowledge, is a fee double the typical demolition fee for that owner if they were caught. The EPD would have also filed some sort of charges, but I'm not familiar with that as
Okay.
well.
Okay, so you remember that tree in one of the pictures? Did that tree remain that was right in front of the burned out house? Did that tree remain?
I don't remember, to be honest.
Is it possible that the destruction or demolition of that tree would have created an issue? Would Southern have taken down that tree? Was that part of their proposal?
They would have had to have a permit to remove that tree. And also the cost estimate would have been included in their notice to proceed or subsequent change orders.
Would they have had any problem with the tree ordinance?
If they took it down without a permit, yes,
Because it was breast height and all that. It was pretty substantial.
it was.
Okay. All right. Let me just look over my notes. Is there any other way to contain friable asbestos other than to wet it down, put it in special bags, haul it to a special area?
Yes, there is, but that is if the structure that the asbestos containing material is being removed from can allow personnel to safely remove it. I have seen them remove asbestos by encapsulating the area where the asbestos is to be removed, but the structure was substantially sound and safe for workers to remove it and bag it and take it away from the site.
Because by the time a roof collapses, you've already got friable asbestos arguably entering the atmosphere.
That's correct. And let me add that when you disturb it, it becomes friable. If it's sitting there, it's going to sit there. But to disturb the surfaces, then it's when it becomes friable.
Okay, but the collapsing of the roof could have made some of it friable.
Oh, it was definitely friable at the time of that, but with the elements, the weather elements, that the friability probably was limited after the collapse for a period of time.
Okay, but if you take a bulldozer in there, you're gonna make it more friable.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember the picture with Southern Demo and the track machine?
Yes.
Okay, so Southern Demo generally uses, or any contractor would use, probably some kind of earth moving / bulldozer equipment.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Unless
they didn't go in there and pick it up shingle by shingle.
no,
Okay.
no.
Okay, I think I'm through bothering you, officer. I respect what you do.
Thank
All
you,
right,
ma'am.
anybody want to come behind me for redirect? Ms. Long Daniels?
I have no additional questions, Your Honor.
Any recross on my examination, Mr. Clark?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lyles. Any
You're
more
welcome.
witnesses, Ms. Long Daniels?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Any rebuttal, Mr. Clark?
No, Your Honor.
All right, I'm ready. Oh, wait. We're going back to Ms. Long Daniels. Do you move 1
Yes,
through 17 into evidence?
yes, Your Honor. I
Any
do. I was just about to
objections,
do that.
Mr. Clark?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, 1 through 17 of the state's, excuse me, the city's exhibits are admitted into evidence without objection. All right, I'm looking forward to argument. You get to go first and last, Mr. Clark. What do you want me to do?
Well, I think the appropriate thing would be to find this lien, certainly as it relates to the wet demolition, is totally invalid.
Invalid?
Invalid, unenforceable, should not attach to the property. I mean, we heard, that J&B went out on September, or actually August 30th, 31st, demolished the property. They were done on September 2nd, essentially with the demo. We have pictures, we have the metadata from the phone, which if you can manipulate that, it's certainly beyond my capabilities. But also that's why we took the newspaper out there, so that we could establish, if we ever had to, exactly when the demolition happened. We've got pictures coming back to Mr. Anderson from the guy on the ground saying, hey, I'm finished with the seed. I put the straw down. We've heard absolutely no testimony to contradict that. The city was not there during that time. They don't contend they were there. They don't contend. They don't even know when their own contractor went out. The contractor for Southern Demo didn't testify as to when they came out. We do have a picture taken by my client of when they were there, which is basically 1 week later, September the 10th, when they brought their excavator out there. But by that time, the property was demolished. And so I think it's pretty, and let me get to the asbestos. I mean, we just went through the whole bid sheet. They removed the one line item for the wet demo, which was, by the way, only $3,800, took it down to zero. There's no scope of work for asbestos removal. So that they weren't being charged for asbestos removal. I don't understand why we're talking about asbestos removal, but yet they get an invoice for $26,000 for a wet demolition, which we just heard testimony only relates to asbestos. So I don't understand that invoice. They certainly hadn't put anybody here to testify as to why they think the Southern Demolition is entitled to bill for a wet demolition. It's very easy to bring dumpster bills, that sort of thing, showing where they took the debris, if they existed. It didn't. So we think that the wet demolition certainly shouldn't apply. And I don't know why the wooden fence was installed in the first place. It's not part of the code. It seems like something they did voluntarily, which we appreciate, but not what we asked for. I don't think we should pay for the wood fence either. But we do admit that was put there. So if they're going to argue some sort of unjust enrichment or whatever, I don't know. But that's only $2,400 as opposed to $30,000. So we are asking the court to strike the lien in its entirety, and certainly for the wet demolition portion.
All right, Ms. Long Daniels.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, I think it's clear that the city paid for the demolition of, that the city contracted with Southern Demolition Environmental to demolish the property, and that is in fact what happened. And they were paid for demolishing the property and hauling away the debris. Anyone can take a picture with an old newspaper. You can choose the newspaper with any date and say that happened on that date. So that's not conclusive. Also, there was no testimony from the supposed demolition company, which we were told we would hear, regarding the demolition of the home that was at 217 Joseph E. Lowry Boulevard. Your Honor, I think the city has, or Mr. Clark has failed to prove that the property was demolished by someone other than Southern Demolition Environmental. And we would ask that the lien remain in place and that the plaintiff be required to pay the amount assessed along with any applicable penalties.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, well, I tell you what, everybody, I can't give you a decision right now. Is there any way y'all could, I don't know if you already have them scanned, but could you send me your exhibits each side? It's Jane, Jane .Barwick, which is BARWICK at fultoncountyga.gov. And you have presented a wonderful case. Officer Laws, thank you very much. Mr. Anderson, thank you very much. Guess this is what courts are for. So I'll get you out a decision just as soon as I can, and I can't thank y'all enough. I hope everybody stays safe and takes care of your families, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay,
Have a
good
good
to
day.
see you guys.
All right.
All right, wait, I gotta take you off.